Abigail was horrified. Ethan, how could he do this to her? They had a daughter, a home, a family. Abigail walked into the room in a great mood. Ethan's laptop was open, and on the screen, he'd apparently forgotten to quit email. A message with the subject line, "Missed," glowed. And not just one message, an entire correspondence. Sweet words he'd once said to her. Weekend plans he'd spent with co-workers, and even their family photos, which he'd apparently bragged about when talking about his boring family life. She felt physically sick. The room swam. She grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the laughter of their daughter Lilia playing in the next room. The contrast between her crumbling universe and the normalcy of everything around her was unbearable. The next few hours passed in a blur. Somehow she packed her things for daycare, picked up Lilia, fed her dinner without even eating a bite herself, and read a story. As she put her daughter to bed, she looked at her carefree face and wondered if she was ruining her childhood. That thought was the most painful. That night, while Ethan slept soundly on his side of the bed, she lay staring at the ceiling. There were no tears. There was only an icy emptiness and a deafening roar in her ears. She lay awake all night, rehearsing dialogues in her head that would never make sense again. When he returned the next day with a bouquet of peonies, her favourite flowers, the cruel irony she now saw in that gesture, a smile and a kiss on the cheek, she didn't respond. She silently led him to the computer. His face went through all the stages: bewilderment, recognition, panic, an attempt to take control of the situation. "Abby, it's not what you think. It's just flirting, a quirk. She means nothing," he said. And all she heard was the sound of her shattered faith. "How many times?" she asked quietly, and her own voice seemed alien to her. She rebuffed his attempts to hug him with a force she didn't expect. "Don't touch me. Never." She declared a cold war on him. They lived in the same house, like ghosts, crossing paths only in the hallway. He slept in the spare room. She cried in the bathroom, running the water so no one would hear. She reread their old letters, watched wedding videos, and howled in pain, burying her face in the pillow. She searched within herself for the cause. Am I a bad wife? Have I stopped taking care of myself? Am I not interesting enough? Her self-esteem was shattered. The turning point came a week later. She was making breakfast for Lilia and dropped a plate. It shattered, and she simply sat down on the floor amid the shards and burst into tears. Not quietly, but chokingly, bitterly and loudly. Lilia came up to her, hugged her around the neck and said, "Don't cry, Mummy. We'll buy a new, beautiful one." At that moment, Abigail realized she had no right to break. For the sake of this little man, who looked at her with such love and trust, she had to be strong. The anger she'd been expecting came right then. But it wasn't destructive anger at Ethan. It was a fierce, seething determination to live, and to live better than before. She called him to talk. Her eyes were dry, her voice even and metallic. "Our relationship is over. I'm filing for divorce. I don't want to figure out who's to blame. I want a fair division and civilized communication for Lilia's sake. If you try to stop me, I'll fight to the end." He was stunned. He expected hysterics, humiliation, begging for his return. He saw before him not a victim, but an adversary, and that's what frightened him most. The difficult months began. A lawyer, endless property negotiations. Ethan suddenly turned out to be very stingy. She got her first job in years, as a remote administrator for a small blog. The salary was meagre, but it was hers. She rented a small but bright apartment. She and Lilia spent their first night in the new place, lying on a mattress in the middle of the empty living room, gazing at the stars through the window, and it was happiness, fragile, but hers. She signed up not just for a gym, but for boxing. She went out to her first workouts fuming, imagining Ethan's face on the punching bag. Then the anger gave way to excitement, and then to self-respect and her growing body. She found the courage to enroll in those very graphic design courses she'd dreamed of in her youth. It turned out she had talent. She took small jobs on freelance platforms, mastering the software at night. She was scared, but the fear no longer paralysed her. It drove her. A year passed. Abigail sat in a cosy cafe, leafing through her portfolio of work. Next to her, Lilia squealed with delight, trying to catch a piece of pancake with her spoon. They chatted and laughed. Abigail noticed the man at the next table looking at them, not vulgarly, but with interest and approval. And she didn't look down, as she would have done before, but smiled slightly. She was confident. She was interesting to herself. One day, taking Lilia to Ethan's for the weekend, she saw him. He looked older and rumpled. He asked, "How are you?" And she, looking him straight in the eye, sincerely replied, "I've never been happier." And it was the honest truth. His betrayal became the starting point from which she launched herself, swimming to a shore she had never even dreamed of. He wanted to ruin her life, but ended up giving her a new one. She didn't thank him for the pain, but she was grateful to herself for having the courage to go through it and come out the other side, a stronger, wiser, and more whole woman. Her greatest victory wasn't leaving him, but returning to herself.